Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into some fascinating source material, classic science fiction stuff.
That's right. We've got a collection of excerpts, some official logs, even technical reports, all centering on this really pivotal event.
Yeah, it all happens aboard the Starship Enterprise near this pretty forbidding planet called Alpha 177.
And our job today really is to unpack all of this. We want to pull out the key events, find those surprising little details, and understand what this whole experience tells us.
Not just about the characters involved, but maybe also about human nature itself. It gets surprisingly deep.
It really does. The core situation, based on these sources, seems straightforward at first glance. It's a mission to gather specimens, pretty standard stuff.
But it goes wrong. Seriously wrong.
Yeah.
Because of a technological failure with the ship's transporter unit?
Yeah, the transporter, something they rely on constantly, day in, day out. And it malfunctions.
But here's the twist. And this is what makes the sources so compelling. The consequences aren't just, technical glitches or delays. It's much weirder and more profound.
It leads to this incredibly dangerous situation. Involves duplication, identity, big questions about what makes someone who they are.
So we're going to walk you through the sequence of events exactly as they're laid out in these records. We'll look at the facts as the crew uncovered them, track how the crisis escalates.
And then we'll spend some real time on the insights that emerge. Some of them are pretty startling, even uncomfortable, especially concerning the captain.
Right. We want you to really get what happened here and maybe why this particular scenario still resonates. So let's dive in.
Okay. So Section 1. The incident itself, starting down on Alpha 177, and the very first signs that something is seriously wrong.
Right. The setup. The sources tell us there's a landing party already on the surface. Their mission. Specimen-gathering.
But it's immediately clear this isn't some paradise planet. The sources really emphasize the environment. It's harsh.
Yeah, particularly the cold. There's this line quoted directly, someone saying, "At night it gets down, 120 degrees below zero." That's nippy.
Nippy is putting it mildly. That establishes the stakes right away. You can't hang around down there. Time is a factor.
Definitely. So the first person beamed back up is this geological technician, Fisher.
And he's had a small accident. Fell off a bank, cut his hand. Seems pretty minor, standard occupational hazard.
But what he fell onto, that's the crucial bit, isn't it?
It really is. The source describes it as some kind of yellow ore, probably meaning ore, a mineral deposit. And it notes two key things about it.
What are those?
It's magnetic, and Fisher's suit needed to be decontaminated because it was covered in this stuff.
Decontamination, okay.
Oh.
Seems routine, maybe.
You didn't think so. But this yellow ore, this seemingly mundane detail, gets flagged later in the reports as the likely cause, the catalyst, for the whole transporter nightmare. It's the first domino.
Wow. Okay, so Fisher beams up, covered in this magnetic yellow stuff, and Captain Kirk is right behind him, ready to beam up too.
And this is where we see the first subtle signs of the human impact of the malfunction. It's easy to miss at first.
How so?
Well, Kirk arrives in the transporter room, and the source says he reports feeling just a little dizzy. Okay, maybe that's the transport, maybe the planet. Plausible deniability, almost.
Could be anything.
But then his behavior starts to shift. Just slightly. Someone offers him help and he snaps back, "I can't get through there," and just brushes off the concern. Nothing serious. The tone is off. Sharp.
Yeah, not typical. And then his interaction with Fisher, the guy who cut his hand.
Even more telling. Fisher's back on duty, presumably patched up, and Kirk sees him. His reaction, quoted in the source, is just incredibly cold. "I have no sympathy for clumsiness."
Ouch. It's harsh. Especially from a captain known for looking out for his crew. A real lack of empathy there.
Exactly. It's a stark contrast to his usual character, the first really clear behavioral red flag. Something's not right with the captain.
And this odd behavior escalates. He goes somewhere specific next.
He does. He heads straight to sickbay. And he makes this very specific, very strange demand.
Which is?
He demands brandy. Not requests, demands. This detail gets brought up again and again in the sources. It becomes a crucial piece of evidence later on. It's just so uncharacteristic given the circumstances.
So people are noticing. His senior officers, McCoy.
Oh, definitely. Dr. McCoy, his close friend and the ship's doctor, is clearly concerned. The sources have him telling Spock later that Kirk was acting like a wild man and about the brandy demand. They can sense something is deeply wrong, even if they don't understand why yet.
And while they're grappling with the captain's weird behavior, Scotty, the chief engineer, is figuring out the technical side.
Yes, Scotty delivers the bad news straight up. Transporter breakdown, sir. Confirms there is a technical fault.
And the proof of what this breakdown actually does, it comes from something beamed up earlier.
Precisely. The absolute confirmation, the sort of terrifying evidence, isn't a person. It's an animal specimen they transported just before Kirk.
What happened to it?
Scotty brings it forward, and the reality is just unmistakable. It wasn't just transported. It was duplicated. He says it plainly. Two of the same animal, but different.
Different how? Not just two copies.
No, that's the chilling part. The sources describe one as being gentle, docile, maybe even passive.
Okay. And the other?
The other is described as mean and fierce, a savage, ferocious opposite.
Whoa. So the transporter didn't just clone it.
Yeah.
It split its personality, its nature.
Exactly. It divided the animal into two polarized extremes. And Scotty, being the practical engineer he is, immediately grasps the horrifying potential danger. His line is stark. If this should happen to a man.
Yeah, that hits hard. So the malfunction isn't just about making copies. It can duplicate and fundamentally divide a living being.
It confirms their worst fears about what might be happening, and it perfectly sets the stage for the crisis to erupt on the human level, which it does very quickly.
And where does that happen? The first really undeniable human incident.
It unfolds dramatically in Captain Kirk's private quarters. This is the shocking encounter reported by Yeoman Janice Rand.
Okay, tell us about that. The sources describe the duplicate appearing there.
Yes, and his actions, his words, are completely alien to the Captain Rand knows. He's described as aggressive, forceful.
What is he saying?
He confronts her directly, tells her she's too beautiful to ignore, too much woman. The language is really charged, aggressive, and possessive.
Possessive?
Yeah, he claims they've both been pretending too long and basically demands she stop pretending. The implication, drawn from the source dialogue, is that he's acting on impulses the real Kirk keeps tightly under control.
And it gets worse.
It does. He physically attempts to force himself on her. The source quotes him, "Don't fight me, Janice. Don't fight me." This isn't just inappropriate. It's an attempted assault, a raw display of aggression.
Terrifying for her. How does she react?
She's frightened, naturally, but she fights back. She states very clearly in her testimony later, "I had to fight you. Scratch your face."
She scratched him. That's going to be important, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Because right after this attack, the other Captain Kirk appears. The one who seems weaker, more himself, but confused.
Kirk.
Or at least the one who isn't attacking people. He claims he was in his room the whole time, and he insists vehemently, "It wasn't me."
So now you have two Kirks, one accused of assault, the other denying it, looking bewildered. The situation is impossible.
Completely impossible. And it forces the senior crew, Spock and McCoy especially, to move fast from just being confused to actively gathering evidence. They have to figure out what's going on.
Janice Rand's testimony must be central to that.
It's the cornerstone. She recounts the whole horrible incident, what he said, how he kissed her, how he used his authority as captain, talked about hidden feelings.
She must have been incredibly conflicted.
The sources capture that perfectly. She says things like, "I didn't know what to do, and he's the captain, and I couldn't just..." You can feel her struggle to reconcile the attacker with the commanding officer she respects.
But the physical evidence cuts through that confusion. The scratch.
That's the clincher. She insists she scratched his face. Then the weak Kirk, the one claiming innocence, shows his face. And the sources state clearly, no scratches. None at all.
That's it then. Undeniable proof.
It proves beyond any reasonable doubt that the man who attacked Janice was a separate physical entity. Not just the captain having a breakdown, but an actual physical duplicate.
And other pieces start clicking into place around this.
Quickly, McCoy confirms the earlier strange behavior, the brandy demand in sickbay, then, significantly, the empty brandy bottle. It's found in Yeoman Rand's quarters.
Meaning the duplicate must have taken it there after leaving sickbay and before or after confronting her.
Precisely. And then Technician Fisher pipes up. He confirms seeing the aggressive acting Kirk somewhere else on the ship during that time, contradicting the weak Kirk's claim of being in his quarters.
So the animal duplicate, the attack, the scratch discrepancy, the brandy bottle, the witness sighting, it all points one way.
To Spock's logical, inescapable conclusion, stated directly in the source. There's only one logical answer. We have an imposter aboard.
An imposter, a duplicate.
Yeah.
Created by the transporter.
Wow. And this realization just explodes the situation. Now they know they have a dangerous duplicate loose on the ship. The real captain seems to be fading somehow in all this time.
The landing party is still stuck down on that freezing planet.
Exactly. Multiple crises hitting all at once. We can actually see the captain's own perspective shift through his log entries.
Oh, right, the captain's logs. What do they tell us?
They provide this really personal timeline. We have entries from stardate 1672.1, then 1672.9, 1673.1, and 1673.5. Pretty rapid succession.
What was he saying early on?
At 1672.1, very soon after it happens, he's already logging that a duplicate of me, some strange alter ego, had been created by the transporter malfunction. He knows, or strongly suspects, almost immediately.
And by the next day?
By 1672.9, it's confirmed. He logs, an unexplained duplicate of myself definitely exists. No more doubt.
But the later entries,
Yeah.
they show the cost, right? The personal impact.
They really do. 1673.1 and 1673.5 are quite harrowing. He logs losing his strength of will. He says decisions are becoming more and more difficult. His essential force of will is steadily weakening.
So the split isn't just physical. It's draining his essence, his command ability.
It seems so. Something vital has been literally torn away from him. While he's dealing with that internal collapse, Scotty's trying to fix the machine that caused it.
And he traces it back to that yellow ore from the planet.
Yeah, his technical diagnosis points squarely at that soft yellow ore with its highly unusual properties. The theory is it caused a massive overload when Fisher, covered in it, beamed through, and maybe residual effects hit Kirk too.
Do they find physical damage to the transporter?
Oh, yes. The reports describe significant damage. A wide gap ripped in the transporter casing itself. Inside, the main circuits have been burned through.
Wow, sounds bad.
And critically, one specific vital part is destroyed. The abort control circuit is gone altogether.
The abort control, meaning
Meaning, once you start beaming someone, you can't stop it. There's no emergency shutoff for that sequence anymore. Talk about adding risk to an already dangerous situation.
definitely. And Scott had an estimate for fixing all this.
Using standard methods. He figures less than a week, which sounds okay in normal times, but
But with the landing party freezing to death, a week is way too long.
it was an eternity they don't have, because down on Alpha 177, the situation is getting critical. The cold is relentless.
We saw the prediction. 120 below zero at night. Are they getting updates?
They are, and they're grim. The sources track the temperature drop reported by the landing party. First, it's negative 41 degrees below zero. Then it plummets to negative 75 degrees. Then a truly lethal minus 117 degrees below zero.
Minus 117. How can anyone survive that?
They can't, not for long. Their survival gear is failing too. They tried beaming down thermal heaters.
Let me guess.
Yep. According to the source, the heaters also duplicated when they went through the damaged transporter, and the duplicates won't operate. So,
Useless.
unbelievable. So what are they using for heat? Hand phasers. Set low, presumably. But even those are failing. Sulu reports back, 1 pays a quit on this, 3 still operating. They're running out of options fast.
And the men themselves.
The human cost is starting to show. Sulu reports 2 men are already unconscious. Diagnosis, severe exposure, frostbite. Time is gone. The messages become desperate pleas. Can't last much longer. No time. No. Can't wait.
So you've got men dying on the planet, a broken transporter that duplicates things and takes a week to fix. But using it might duplicate the men.
That's the horrific catch-22 the sources lay out. They know they can't leave those 4 men down there to freeze, but they also don't dare bring up the landing party because they could end up duplicated like the animal, or worse, killed by the malfunctioning unit.
The potential rescue method is also a potential disaster.
Exactly. It forces them to confront the duplicate situation on the ship with extreme urgency. They need to understand the split, find the duplicate, and figure out how to reverse this, all while the clock is ticking down on the planet.
So the focus shifts back to the ship, finding the negative Kirk duplicate.
Right. Search parties are formed, Spock's coordinating, and a very specific, very important order goes out.
Which is?
The sources stress this point repeatedly. The duplicate is not to be injured. Phaser settings are explicit. Base cycle, stunning force. It's reiterated. The imposter is not to be injured. Use minimum force.
Why? He's dangerous. He attacked Rand. Why not take him down harder?
Because they're starting to understand he's not just an enemy. They realize they can't take a chance on killing it. They admit they have no previous experience with anything like this.
And killing the duplicate might kill the original.
That's the fear. They have no way of knowing what would happen to the original Kirk. Spock articulates the underlying reason. The duplicate is part of you, Kirk. There's a connection, maybe a vital one. Killing one half might destroy the whole.
Wow. Okay. So while they're searching for him carefully, Spock and McCoy have this philosophical debate.
They do. It happens later, in sickbay, once the duplicate is captured and restrained, but it's one of the most revealing parts of the source material. They're grappling with the meaning of it all.
How does Spock approach it? Logically, I assume.
Pure logic, almost clinical detachment. He sees it as this unique chance to study the human mind, specifically the roles of good and evil in a man.
Good and evil. How does he define those here?
He categorizes the duplicate as the negative side, embodying things like hostility, lust, violence. The weakened original Kirk represents the positive side, compassion, love, tenderness.
Okay, that makes sense as a division. But then he takes it somewhere unexpected.
Radically unexpected. Spock theorizes that this negative side, these supposedly bad traits, when they're properly controlled and disciplined, are actually vital to his Kirk's strength.
Vital. Hostility and lust are vital.
That's Spock's hypothesis, straight from the source. He calls it the evil side, if you will, and argues it's what makes Kirk an exceptional leader. He even states flat out that Kirk's strength of command lies mostly in him, the negative duplicate.
So the dark side isn't just a flaw, it's the engine of his command ability. That's a really challenging idea.
It absolutely is. It goes against a lot of simple moral thinking. And McCoy, being the humanist, reacts strongly at first.
How did he react?
He's uncomfortable, calls it analyzing Kirk's guts. He finds Spock's detachment disturbing. But as things progress, as they see the weak Kirk struggling, unable to make decisions.
McCoy comes around.
Reluctantly, yes. The source has him eventually conceding to Spock. You're right. He tells the weak Kirk, without the negative side, you wouldn't be the captain, you couldn't be, and you know it.
Wow. So even the doctor, the compassionate one, sees the truth in Spock's harsh logic based on the evidence before them.
It seems the unfolding reality forces that conclusion. Meanwhile, the weak Kirk himself is aware of his limitations.
What does he acknowledge?
He admits he's lost the power of decision, that core command function, but he knows he still has his intellect. Spock encourages him, fight with that. Use reason, strategy, what you have left.
And the negative Kirk, is he just raw emotion? Or is there more to him?
He's definitely not mindless. The sources show he has knowledge, cunning, he knows the ship layout, crew names he calls Wilson by name during the attack.
So he retains the captain's memories and knowledge.
It seems so. And tactical sense, too. He knows where to hide, heading for the lower levels, the engineering deck, to evade the search parties.
And he's dangerous. He actually hurts someone.
Yes. He attacks crewman Wilson, injures him, and steals his hand phaser. The official announcement labels him dangerous. He's the captain's aggression and drive, completely untethered from conscience or control.
Okay, so recapping the crisis. Landing party critical, transporter broken, captain split, one dangerous and armed, the other intelligent but indecisive and weak. The pressure must be immense.
Unbearable. Let's just quickly tick off the situation again using the source details. Transporter fix, still estimated at less than a week. Landing party temperature, now naggest 117 degrees. 2 men unconscious. Equipment failing.
And Sulu's messages from down there.
Utterly desperate. No time. Can't wait. They're literally seconds from freezing to death. And then, back on the ship, observing the captured negative Kirk in sickbay, Spock notices something else, something alarming.
About the duplicate's condition.
Yes. He observes, apparently the body functioning weakened during the duplication process. The duplicate isn't stable.
Not stable how? Is he dying?
That's the shocking conclusion they reach. Spock confirms it. He's not dying. Yes, he is. The negative half is fading, running out of energy, unable to sustain itself independently.
Whoa. So the two halves need each other to live?
That's the horrifying realization for the original Kirk. The source quotes his anguished cry, "How can he die? How can I survive without him?" It confirms they're two parts of one whole, interdependent.
So survival means putting them back together.
Yes. The weak Kirk voices this necessity himself. I have to take him back inside myself. I can't survive without him. But the sources also show his intense revulsion at the idea.
Understandably. He sees the duplicate as brutal.
He calls him like an animal, a thoughtless, brutal animal. But then he forces himself to confront the deeper truth. And yet, it's me. He acknowledges we all have our darker side. It's half of what we are. It's not really ugly. It's human.
That's a huge moment of acceptance, facing the totality of himself.
A deeply painful one. And just as this realization hits, Scotty and Spock report a potential breakthrough with the transporter.
They found a faster way to fix it.
Not exactly fix, more like bypass.
Yeah.
They report they've found a way to get the transporter working much sooner. They've rigged something up.
Right, Tao.
They've attached some bypass and leader circuits to compensate for the difference. The damage, presumably and crucially, they've tied the transporter directly into the ship's powerful impulse engines.
Tied into the impulse engines. That sounds risky.
Experimental.
Highly experimental.
Yeah.
Spock himself is cautious. He states there shouldn't be more than a 5-point variation in the velocity balance, which sounds technical, but clearly indicates a margin for potentially catastrophic error during reintegration. It's a gamble. So before they try it on the captains, they need a test run.
Exactly. And the only available subject is the duplicated animal specimen. Spock suggests, logically but grimly, I suggest we send the animal through.
How does the test go? They beam both halves onto the platform.
Yes, they get the animals, give the command energize to materialize them, and then the critical command for reintegration, reverse.
And the result? Does it work?
No. It's tragic. McCoy examines the result and delivers the verdict bluntly. He's dead, Jim. The animal dies in the reintegration attempt.
Oh no. Why? What went wrong? Do they know?
They debate it. McCoy theorizes it was psychological. Shock induced by blind terror. He suggests the animal was simply terrified, confused by being split and rejoined, and died from the sheer trauma. Spock concedes this sounds likely.
But there's another possibility.
Yes, the sources mention the alternative. Suppose death was caused by a transporter malfunction, meaning the bypass circuit itself, the experimental fix, might be inherently lethal regardless of the subject's mental state.
So they're left with this terrible uncertainty. The only potential solution killed the only test subject, and they don't know if it was fear or faulty wiring.
Precisely. Which leads directly to the climax. The impossible command decision facing the weakened Kirk.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Laid out starkly in the sources, he has to choose. Risk his own life attempting reintegration using a process that just killed the animal. Or do nothing, condemning his men on Alpha 177 to certain death by freezing.
McCoy must be urging caution.
Absolutely. He pleads with Kirk, you can't risk your life on a theory. He sees the animal's death as a clear warning sign. This process is deadly.
But Spock offers a different interpretation, based on his earlier theory.
Yes, Spock argues Kirk is different from the animal. He posits that Kirk's intelligence, his human consciousness, gives him the ability to control his fear, to understand what's happening, and potentially survive as well, unlike the terrified animal.
But it's still just a theory.
As McCoy points out, and Spock has to admit, yes. Just theory. No guarantees. Only a logical possibility against the stark reality of the dead animal.
How is the weak Kirk handling this? The sources show him struggling.
Visibly struggling. He actually says, help me, somebody make the decision. He feels his weakness acutely. I'll be glad when this is over. He's still wrestling with the nature of the duplicate, calling him that thoughtless, brutal animal, but then immediately follows with, and yet it's me.
He's circling back to that acceptance.
That difficult acceptance. We all have our darker side. It's half of what we are. It's not really ugly. It's human. He's intellectually and emotionally grappling with the necessity of reintegrating this part he finds so repulsive.
So who forces the decision? Does Spock step in?
Spock understands protocol. Even now, he knows the command decision must rest with the captain, however weakened. He asks the direct question, are you relinquishing your command, Captain?
Puts him on the spot. And Kirk's answer.
Despite everything, despite the weakness and indecision just moments before, the Corps commander responds. The source gives his answer as firm, no. No, I'm not.
He holds on to command. Even now.
Which means the burden is solely his. McCoy confirms this. Then we can't help you, Jim. The decision is yours.
And he makes it.
He does. Drawing on some deep reserve, he gives the order. Mr. Spock, ready the transporter room. He accepts the personal risk for his crew, stating the necessity. It's what I have to do. It's what we have to do.
So they need to get the negative Kirk to the transporter room.
Yeah.
How is he by now? Still defiant?
No, the sources describe him as having changed significantly now that he's weakened and facing reintegration. He's found in engineering, and he's frantic, scared.
Scared, the aggressive one.
Yes, he pleads, please, I don't want to. He expresses a raw desire to live. I want to live, but also, paradoxically, this urge to be whole again. Don't make me, I want to go back.
He understands they need to rejoin.
He seems to. He says to the weak Kirk, acknowledging their shared fate, you will, both of us.
And the actual rejoining? It's a physical process.
Very much so. The sources depict the weak Kirk having to physically grab and hold on to the struggling, resisting negative Kirk, forcing them both onto the transporter pad together. There's an explicit instruction noted. You have to hold on to him, Captain.
A literal struggle to become whole again.
An active reclaiming of the lost part. And then, together, knowing the risks, knowing what happened to the animal, they step into the beam.
And the work.
Against all odds, yes. The sources state they are successfully rejoined. A single, whole Captain Kirk materializes.
Incredible. So first order of business.
Rescue the landing party. Immediately. The restored captain gives the command without hesitation. Get those men aboard fast.
And their condition. Do they make it?
They're in bad shape. Brought up with severe exposure, frostbite. But the assessment is hopeful. They're expected to make it. The gamble paid off just in time.
And how is Kirk himself, immediately after reintegration?
McCoy checks on him, asks, "How do you feel, Jim?" "Huh." Kirk's response is profound, revealing the psychological scar.
What does he say?
"I've seen a part of myself no man should ever see." It suggests the experience was deeply traumatic, a confrontation with something primal within himself.
But outwardly. Does he hesitate?
Not for a second. Command mode kicks in instantly. He starts giving standard orders. Navigator set and course correction. Helms, steady as she goes. The captain is fully back, integrated, and in charge.
Is his authority challenged at all?
Briefly, a crewman named Parle questions him, maybe confused by rumors. Kirk's response is firm, shutting it down immediately. No question who's in command now. His strength is restored.
There was also that interesting detail about the negative Kirk trying one last trick.
With the scratches.
Ah, yes. Right before reintegration, the negative one, trying to save himself perhaps, points to the scratches Janice gave him, which are now on the rejoined Kirk's face, and claims that proves the weak Kirk was the imposter. Real cunning, even then.
Spock knew better.
Spock just confirms to the rejoined Kirk, yes, I know. He understood the whole sequence, including that last desperate ploy.
And how does the crew, like Janice Rand, process this? Janice approaches Kirk later, needing to explain the scratches, understanding now it was the duplicate. She says something like, "The imposter told me what happened? Oh, he really was," trying to process the reality of it.
And Kirk's response?
Brief, accepting, "Thank you, Yolen," acknowledges her ordeal, but signals it's time to move on.
And does he want the whole story explained to the crew?
No. When Spock asks if he should explain, Kirk's directive is clear. The imposter's back where he belongs, let's forget him.
So internal integration is enough. No need for public dissection.
Seems that way. The two halves are one, the crisis is over, focus forward.
Wow. Okay, let's try to summarize this incredible journey we've traced through the sources. It starts with a technical glitch, right? A transporter breakdown caused by some weird space ore.
Yeah, but that glitch spirals into something way deeper. It physically splits the captain into two opposing halves, the aggressive, impulsive negative side and the weakened, intellectual positive side.
And this forces everyone, especially Spock and McCoy, into this intense debate about what makes us human. Are we just our good parts? Or is the dark side, the aggression, also essential, especially for leadership?
The story leans heavily towards the latter, suggesting that controlled negative traits are vital for strength and command, directly through Spock's arguments and McCoy's eventual agreement based on Kirk's weakened state.
All while the clock is ticking down for the landing party freezing on the planet below. They find a risky experimental fix for the transporter.
But the test fails. The animal dies, leaving Kirk with an impossible choice. Risk near-certain death trying the reintegration himself, or let his men die.
He chooses the risk, struggles physically and mentally to rejoin with his other half, and succeeds, saving himself and his crew at the last second.
So the takeaways from these sources are pretty significant. First, the obvious one. Technology can have wildly unforeseen consequences, messing with fundamental aspects of existence.
Right. And second, human identity is presented as incredibly complex. Not neat and tidy, but this messy integration of conflicting traits, including ones we might call dark or negative.
And crucially, the sources argue that those negative traits, hostility, drive, maybe even cunning, aren't just flaws. When they're disciplined and integrated, they might be essential for strength, for leadership, for survival even.
Trying to cut them out, like the transporter accidentally did, doesn't make you better. It makes you weaker, incomplete, potentially fatally so.
True strength, the story suggests, comes from integrating all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, accepting the whole package.
Which really brings it back to us, the listeners, doesn't it? Why does this old story still grab us? Maybe because it makes us look at ourselves.
Do we try to suppress parts of ourselves? The anger, the ambition, the less nice impulses? What does real strength look like in our own lives?
Are those negative traits really just negative? Or are they part of being fully human, things we need to understand and integrate, not just push away?
It makes you think about the captain's final reflection after it was all over. I've seen a part of myself no man should ever see.
What does that mean for you? What would it mean to truly confront all of yourself, the parts you're proud of and the parts that feel, well, animalistic or ugly, and to recognize all of it as just human?
And maybe ask, how essential is that kind of difficult self-acceptance, that integration, for handling the tough calls and challenges in our own world, for being truly whole?
Definitely a lot to mull over there. A fascinating look at what it means to command oneself.
Indeed it is, a truly compelling scenario drawn from these sources.
Thanks for digging deep into this one with us today.